Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Kyle Ashcraft of Maxwell CPA Review, and I scored a 90 on the audit exam. And I'm here to tell you how I did it. So in this video, we're going to talk about how the audit exam is different from the other exams. We'll talk about how long it took me to study for the exam, and then we'll talk about what an audit really is, why businesses need it, and then how it's different from a review. So with that, let's jump in. So let's first talk about what makes the audit exam unique. The audit exam is very conceptual, meaning that it's not going to involve a lot of numbers, so you really have to imagine what's happening. In that regard, it's really different from the FAR exam. Also, a lot of the multiple choice questions will only be one sentence long. So every single word in the question matters. You can't skip over a single word when you're reading it. So how long did I take to study for the exam? I put in about 5 weeks of studying. So Monday through Friday, I would study for 2 hours each day, and then on Saturday and Sunday, I would study for 5 hours each day. So about 20 hours a week over 5 weeks, I put in about 100 hours of study time, which is about what most sources would recommend for the exam. And then the order in which I took the exams was I started with FAR, and then BEC, and then Reg, and then I finished with Audit. So with that, let's talk about what an audit even is. It's important to wrap our minds around what an audit is before you get too lost in all the technical terms like risk of material misstatement and internal controls. So an audit is an examination of a company's numbers to make sure that their financial statements are correct. It's what holds a company accountable to where they're not just reporting any numbers that they want. Instead, you have this third party, the auditors, that come in and make sure that everything is accurate. So let's say that a company says that it has $100 million of cash on its balance sheet. The auditors are going to want to actually confirm that that cash exists. So the auditors are going to contact the company's bank and ask, can you confirm that this company actually has $100 million? That's known as a bank confirmation. Or let's say the company says that it purchased a vehicle for $25,000. The auditors are going to want to look at the supporting documentation, aka the original purchase agreement, to make sure that the company actually bought a vehicle and that it bought it for $25,000. Or let's say that the company recorded $20 million of accounts payable. So the auditors are going to come in, look at the supporting documentation, the invoices, and make sure that the company owes $20 million and that they're not understating their liability and they actually owe more than that. So the auditors are coming in, they're examining the various accounts and testing the balances of those accounts so that hopefully by the end of it all, the auditors feel confident with the numbers, and then the readers of the financial statements can feel confident with the numbers as well. So what kinds of companies need an audit? Because not every company needs to be audited. First, all publicly traded companies need to be audited, which are companies that are traded on a stock exchange. We're talking big companies like Amazon, Google, Walmart. They all have to be audited every single year. So if you were to search for 10K report for any of these companies, this is the annual financial statements. So in these, you would see an auditor's report that talks about the test work that the auditors did and then their opinion about their test work. But then what about private companies? It really depends for private companies. Let's say that a private company is trying to get a line of credit from the bank, aka a loan. The bank may require the company to be audited because the bank doesn't just want to trust the company with what it says. If the company says that it has $100 million of revenue, then the bank wants this independent third party to come in, the auditors, and actually confirm that the company made $100 million. That way, it lessens the bank's risk that the company is actually going to pay back its debt. And then sometimes a bank is not going to require an audit, but rather they will require a review. Before we move on to the next section, I wanted to mention real quick that I offer online private CPA tutoring. So if you're interested in taking your studies to the next step, you can head to maxwellcpareview.com. And with that, let's get back to the video. So what is a review? A review is a less thorough version of an audit. It goes less in depth than an audit does. Something to keep in mind is that the person who does a review is still called an auditor, which can be kind of confusing. So in an audit, we said that the auditors have to send bank confirmations to confirm the company's cash balance. But in a review, the auditors don't have to take that step. And then in an audit, the auditors have to look at a supporting documentation, like invoices for accounts payable or purchase agreements for vehicles. But in a review, the auditors don't have to take that step. So in a review, the auditors are going to use what is called analytics and inquiry. So analytics is the use of ratios. So the auditors are going to use different ratios to analyze the company. Let's say the auditors are going to use the current ratio, which is current assets over current liabilities. And then let's say that the company's current ratio has been 2 for the past 2 years. So the current assets twice as high as the current liabilities. But then this year, the current ratio dropped to 0.3. So the current assets are only 30% of the current liabilities. Well, the auditors are going to want to find out why it changed so much, which brings us to the inquiry part. So inquiry is when the auditors ask questions to the company's management and employees to try to figure out why certain numbers changed. And then if the auditors get satisfactory answers, then they can move on. So the world of auditing is kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but I hope that this video has put you one step closer to passing the exam. If I can help at all, then please reach out. And if you're interested in the private online CPA tutoring that I offer, you can head to maxwellcpareview.com.